Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start Spreading the News, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start Spreading the News.
And here we are, Monday night, October 28th, 2024, Game 3 of the World Series. Now, I'm actually recording this. This is Paul Semendinger, and the intro didn't quite tell you the true truth. E.J. Fagan will not be with me tonight. He's traveling. And so I'm actually recording this on Sunday because on Monday night, while you're watching this, or if you're watching the recording on YouTube or Roku or on Start Spreading the News, I wanted to make sure I could watch the game, Game 3, with complete fidelity. I wanted to watch the Yankee game from the first pitch to the last out. And I can't do that necessarily when I'm also doing a podcast in the middle of the game. There's preparation for the podcast. And while the game is going on, I can't really be watching it while I'm doing the preparation. And then if EJ and I are discussing the game, we're sort of watching, but we're sort of also talking to each other, and you miss stuff. And tonight, I wanted to make sure that I could watch the whole game because this Game 3 is a huge game for the Yankees, a gigantic game for the Yankees. They must win. They must win tonight. This might be the last great opportunity to enjoy a Yankee game. I'll say this, if they don't win, I'm awful glad that I did not spend thousands of dollars on tickets to go to Yankee Stadium. And judging by their performance in the first 2 games of the World Series, I'm not all that optimistic, but we'll get to that. Hey, my dear friends, Artemisia Publishing is an outstanding publisher who publishes all sorts of books in all sorts of genres. For example, in fiction, they have my wonderful novel, Scattering the Ashes, now an audiobook as well. In the world of sports, they published From Compton to the Bronx. They also published my wonderful motivational book, 365.2, and The Least Among Them, a phenomenal book about the Yankees. Artemisia publishes countless other authors. I believe they have well over 50, maybe even over 100 different authors who have now written for this outstanding publisher. Take a moment, go to apbooks.net and take a look at the many, many, many offerings they have in a variety of genres, including my wonderful works. But it's not just me. Take a look and support Artemisia Publishing, who supports this podcast. All right, let me get the start spreading the news banner back up there, and let's talk a little Yankees. In 1996, the Yankees were not the great Yankees yet. Tino Martinez wasn't even really considered a great Yankee yet. They went out and they acquired Cecil Fielder, a right-handed hitting first baseman, to go along with Tino, a left-handed hitting first baseman, to make a platoon. Wade Boggs wasn't always starting at third base. The Yankees went out and got Charlie Hayes to platoon with him. Their second baseman was Mariano Duncan, and he had a great year and a great saying, "We play today, we win today, that's it." But he was by no means a superstar. Their shortstop was a young rookie named Derek Jeter, who had not established himself as a superstar yet, though he would go on to win the American League Cy Young Award. Their closer was John Wetland. It was their setup man, Mariano Rivera, who was so great. I mean, Wetland does win over time the MVP of the 1996 World Series. But really, it was Mariano Rivera who was so great. But he wasn't known as Mariano Rivera, the greatest relief pitcher of all time in 1996. And the Yankees were playing the Atlanta Braves, who were a powerhouse. I mean, they had John Smoltz, Tom Glavine, and Greg Maddux as their top three starters. That was a tough team to beat. And the Yankees in 1996 went down 2-0. And then they won the World Series. In 1978, I was just a little boy of 10 years old. And the Yankees lost the first 2 games of the World Series in Los Angeles. In Game 3, Ron Guidry started for the Yankees, and Gator didn't really have his great stuff. But my favorite player, Greg Nettles, well, old Nettles made great play after great play at third base. He robbed hit after hit after hit, turned hits into outs. And the Yankees held off and won Game 3. And then they went off to win the World Series. So is all lost with the 2024 Yankees? I don't believe so. Not yet. It's not over yet. But tonight's game, Game 3, is a huge game. So what I want to do tonight is just take the time, lay some things out. Let's talk through them. When this is on, start spreading the news. Feel free to jump into the comments and ask questions. See what you want to know. See where you disagree with me. And we can have a dialogue in the comments section, back and forth. Tell me where I'm wrong or tell me where I'm right. So let's start in the dugout. Now, I didn't see Game 2. I was out with friends. We went to a concert. We went to see the rock band Chicago, or some of the members of the original Chicago with lots of new people playing the traditional great Chicago music. It was terrific. It was a great concert at the Mayo Center in Morristown, New Jersey, a venue I highly recommend. It's nice. It's just the right size. It's intimate. It's got great acoustics. Morristown is a fun place at night on a Saturday night. And I bought the tickets well before I realized that that was going to be Game 2 of the World Series. And so, you know, some people asked me, well, you're going to sell the tickets? You're going to skip the concert? And I said, no way. We're going out with dear friends It's a nice night out. And you know what? There is more to life than the Yankees. If the Yankees lose the World Series, guess what? I'll be disappointed. But life goes on. I mean, the Yankees haven't even been in the World Series since 2009, before this. And you know what? Somehow my life has gone wonderfully well. My children grew up in that time. They've gone to college, graduated college. They're making great things with their lives. I have grandchildren, 2 daughters-in-law. I mean, my goodness, life doesn't stop. I've published books. I finished my career as a principal. I've become a college professor. Actually, I was a college professor before that. But so many great things have happened in my life. Of course, my wife has been there by my side the whole time. We've traveled. We've done so many great things, read so many great books. I mean, you just go on and on. Life goes on. If the Yankees lose, yeah, we'll be frustrated. Yes, I'll complain. Yes, I'll say where I thought they made mistakes and where things went wrong. And we'll spend the winter discussing it and probably all of next season discussing it, saying they got to get back to the World Series and win once. My goodness, for once, let's go, Yankees. You're driving us crazy, but that's just the fan in us talking. It's just having fun. Yeah, it matters as a fan, and it's bothersome that the Yankees aren't winning the World Series every year. Yes, as a Yankee fan, I think they should win the World Series every year. Life goes on. Let's be honest. Let's keep all of this in perspective. It's just a baseball game. And whether the Yankees win or the Yankees lose has no direct bearing on my life. The Yankees do not impact my life in that kind of manner. The Yankees don't know who I am. They don't know who most of you are, and they don't care. That's just the reality. Keep things in perspective, my goodness. But it is important that they win. Come on, it's our emotions here. It's our fandom. We want them as fans to win. Let's go Yankees. And listen, I have not been the biggest supporter of Aaron Boone. I don't think they should have hired him. I don't think he did a great job throughout most of his tenure, but I do think he did a good job through the American League playoff rounds. I thought he managed well. There were a couple times I would disagree. I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have done that. Fair enough. But for the most part, I thought he did well. And I had this sense that Aaron Boone was growing into the job finally, 7 years later, that he was finally becoming a big game manager. I think back to The Godfather and Tom Hagen. You're not a wartime consigliere, Tom. And for so long, I kept thinking that Aaron Boone wasn't a wartime manager. And we've seen that time and again, where the Yankees have been outclassed and outsmarted in big games and in the postseason. But this year, I thought he was doing a pretty good job. That is until game 1 of the World Series, where I think the moment overwhelmed him. If the Yankees had Mariano Rivera, who was a great pitcher, battle-tested over time, sure, I would have no problem using Mariano Rivera 1,000,000 times in the series, as often as possible. He's the great Mariano. But the Yankees are relying on Luke Weaver. And Luke Weaver just isn't a great pitcher. Let's be honest. He's looked great at times, but he's not a great pitcher. He does not have a great track record. No one even knew who he was until this season, basically, and he came out of nowhere. He's doing it with smoke and mirrors, and the fact that his stuff hasn't been seen by a lot of players. So you have this magic trick, Luke Weaver, that we don't know how good it is over time. Mariano Rivera, we knew how good he was over time. Luke Weaver, not so much. So as a manager, you want to limit the amount of times you go to Luke Weaver. Save him for the big moments. But the Yankees, this is one of the mistakes I think Boone has made, keep overusing and overextending Luke Weaver. And in game 1, they took Gerrit Cole out of the game after 88 pitches. That was just not smart. It's interesting. They were talking during game 1 about the great Fernando Valenzuela and how he did in the 1981 World Series against the Yankees. And the comment was made by one of the announcers, well, Fernando threw 141 pitches that night. Now, no one expects Gerrit Cole to throw 140 pitches in a night. I don't think anybody expects him even to throw 120 pitches. But he's your ace. He's your big guy. He was pitching well. You don't take him out after 88 pitches, because what happened was then the Yankees got into that bullpen. And that bullpen started to get exposed. Clay Holmes has been erratic. And so the Yankees really, for the most part, throughout the playoffs, have had 3 pitchers who've pitched consistently well or well enough. Tommy Kahnle, Tim Hill, and Luke Weaver. By pulling Gerrit Cole early, you're forcing your team to have to use those guys more often or quicker or earlier in the game and the series than maybe you had planned. That was a mistake by Aaron Boone. And then we saw how that all progressed until it gets to the 10th inning. And instead of going to Tim Hill, who has done it in the postseason, he went to Nestor Cortes, who hadn't pitched since September 18th or September 19th or something like that, and who's nursing a bad arm. And I talked about this on the Dr. Sem show on Saturday, but that's just illogical. It's a move that makes no sense. None. And Nestor gives up a grand slam to Freddie Freeman, and the Dodgers roll over the Yankees in game 1. That's just how it happened. I think that Aaron Boone in that moment went for the nostalgic choice, the good story choice, the sentimental choice. Oh, wouldn't it be great? What a story if Nestor comes through. But he didn't, and the Yankees lost. You can't leave the pitcher who's been performing in the bullpen to go to a guy who might, and no one knows because he's been injured. And then last night, the game I didn't see, game 2, the Yankees were lethargic. They had 1 hit through 8 innings. And they put together a rally in the 9th, which ends with Jose Trevino swinging at the first pitch and flying out. Now, that I also see as something that falls on the manager. In a big spot, your backup catcher cannot be swinging at the first pitch. You just cannot be swinging at the first pitch. And I believe that his lineup construction, Aaron Boone's, wasn't great. I don't know why he has this fascination with batting Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton back-to-back, and then he bats other lefties back-to-back, Wells and Verdugo, and I have to think back to the lineup. Oh, Chisholm and Rizzo. Why would you stack your lefties that way? Since he's been doing this, 2 games, a very small sample size, the Yankees are 0-2. So Aaron Boone, who I said was doing a pretty good job as the manager in the playoffs, I do not believe has done a good job as the manager in the World Series. Now, for years, I've been writing articles on Start Spreading the News about how Aaron Boone has had a longer leash by far than any Yankee manager in history before he's able to win his first World Series. And I have to wonder, even though he did a very good job, he had a first place team, an erratic first place team that looked miserable for much of the season, but he had the first place team in the American League and he got them through 2 playoff rounds and got them to the World Series. But if the World Series proves bigger than Aaron Boone, again, a big postseason series becoming bigger than the manager, you have to wonder if you bring him back after 7 years of not winning a World Series. You have to wonder. I think right now he's losing, or he's one reason the Yankees are losing the World Series. Going to Nestor Cortez is a mistake that I don't know if your career can bounce back from. I really don't, because it's so illogical. It makes so little sense that it's hard to justify. It's impossible to justify. And you have to say, if this is the way my manager thinks in big moments, I don't know if I want him to be my manager. It's a big decision the Yankees are going to have to make. And hopefully tonight and tomorrow and Wednesday night and then Friday and Saturday, or Friday or Saturday, the Yankees put together 4 wins and they make the whole question moot. I hope so. All right. Please do me a favor and go to Start Spreading the News. And please, when you go there, click on this little logo of 2 wonderful runners, Elmo and me. This year, I will be running the New York City Marathon. It's just 6 days away, 26.2 miles through the streets of New York. Now, many people run charities or run for charities as a way to get into the race. If you join a charity and you raise a certain amount of money, you get a bib to run in the greatest marathon in the world, the New York City Marathon. That's not me. I was in the race regardless of my affiliation with Sesame Workshop. I was in. I am in. If I earn $0 for Sesame Workshop, I'm running the New York City Marathon. And if I earn $40 gazillion for Sesame Workshop, I'm in the New York City Marathon. My affiliation with Sesame has nothing to do, zero to do, with me being able to run the race. My affiliation with Sesame Workshop has 100% to do with my belief in the Sesame Workshop. My belief in Elmo, and Cookie Monster, and Kermit the Frog, and Ernie and Bert, and Big Bird. I grew up watching Sesame Street. I still know that agua means water in Spanish because of Sesame Street. I can count to 10 in Spanish because of Sesame Street. I learned to read in part, I'm sure, because of Sesame Street. I learned to love certain music because of Sesame Street. And then when I became a dad, I shared that love of Sesame with my children. We went to places like Sesame Place and we watched the show. I still remember with my 5-year-old son, Ryan, watching when Wormy went to the moon, how excited he was and how great that was. Sesame Workshop brings education, joy, happiness, and so much more to children all around the world. And so I said, you know what? I'm running the race. I would love to use the fact that I'm running the race to help this wonderful organization. And so please go to Start Spreading the News. Look on the side. There's a great little graphic. You just saw it of Elmo and me. We're running. Click that graphic. Find the giving tab. Find the little button to give. And find it in your heart to make a donation to help better the lives educationally and happily to children all over the world. Please help me help Sesame. Again, I'm doing this not so I can get in the race. I'm doing this because I love Sesame Workshop. I love the people. I love their programs. I love how they help people. And I hope that each of you can take a moment to click, go there, and support my race as I support them. All right. What's the other biggest concern about the Yankees here in this World Series? And it's the biggest concern that's been plaguing them throughout the playoffs. It's Aaron Judge. Now, it's interesting. In the first round of the playoffs, Bob Costas took a ton of heat from everybody because every time Judge came up, he talked about how he has not performed in the postseason. But you know what Judge didn't do? Perform. He didn't take Bob Costas and close his mouth. In fact, with each game, he made Bob Costas's talking points that much more relevant. And then Costas wasn't part of the next series, but Judge did nothing to change the story, to change the narrative. And after 2 games in the World Series, again, he's done nothing. I believe in 40 postseason at-bats, he struck out 19 times. I think that's the number. Think about that. And I have been pointing this out, as well as some others, but I've been pointing this out on Start Spreading the News and facing tremendous pushback, tremendous backlash. You are a Judge hater. You are piling on the great Aaron Judge. How dare you say this about Aaron Judge? And I have to be honest, I'm befuddled and bewildered and confused. Aaron Judge has been awful. Aaron Judge has been terrible. Aaron Judge is one reason the Yankees are 0-2. Aaron Judge has failed in the clutch time after time after time after time after time after time after time again. And I probably didn't even say him enough. Probably didn't say it enough. But probably more after times that I didn't mention. And his at-bats haven't just been bad. They've been awful. They've been non-competitive. It's not like he's lining out to shortstop. It's not like he's hitting long bombs to the warning track. It's not like he has 8 pitches before he strikes out. He has been awful. And the fact, think about this, that he's been so bad has been one reason the games have been so close. And with the game so close, that's forced the manager, who starts to panic, to lift his starting pitcher early and go to the bullpen, which I believe is going to be, if not already, overexposed and overused. But people have been saying, how dare you mention Aaron Judge and his terrible performance so often? You can't do that. You're hating on him. So let me just explain. No, I'm not. I like Aaron Judge. I appreciate Aaron Judge. I think Aaron Judge is a singular great player. I think Aaron Judge might even become one of the top 5 or even 4 greatest Yankees of all time. Only 3 Yankees have accumulated over 100 lifetime WAR: Ruth, Gehrig, and Mantle. Judge could join them. And if Judge ends up with over 100 WAR, it becomes a really interesting question. If the Yankees never win a World Series with Judge, and that's obviously, we've got years and years looking forward, but imagining, does his WAR of over 100 and his multiple MVPs and regular season success, does that outweigh a guy like Joe DiMaggio, who won the World Series all the time and also lost years to the WAR, but who didn't accumulate that much WAR? Where do you take the great Yankee who doesn't have the hardware as far as World Series championships and put him in that pantheon or whatever? It's a great question that let's hope we don't ever have to answer, because let's hope he turns it around. I appreciate how good Aaron Judge is. I love the fact that he played center field all year and did well. I was concerned about that. I thought he'd break down. He does not have the world's greatest injury history. I thought playing center field every day was a terrible decision. I wrote it time and again before the season and even early on in the season. And Judge proved me wrong. Judge will be the MVP of the American League in 2024. I think that's great. Nobody's hating on Aaron Judge. We're just telling the truth. He has been singularly awful. Now, while you're watching this live, hopefully on Monday night, he might have already hit 3 home runs. He might have doubled up the gap and walked and stolen a base and made a great catch or whatever and changed the narrative. I hope he does. I hope he goes on a tear. Why would a Yankee fan not love Aaron Judge? He has done nothing to make you not like him. He's been a dignified superstar. He re-signed with the team when he could have gone elsewhere as a free agent. He set the single-season American League home run record. He brings class. He's the captain of the team. He brings class to the organization. He is this era's superstar. I hope he's joined for many years with Juan Soto, who gets re-signed and is also this generation's superstar. But he is this generation's superstar for the Yankees. Aaron Judge is great. But Aaron Judge has been singularly awful in the playoffs and the World Series, and he's killing them. Both of those things can be true, and all of those things can be true. We can love Aaron Judge, and we can also say he's been terrible. And it's not wrong to say the truth. The truth is Aaron Judge has not been doing well at all. If you strike out 19 times in 40 at-bats or thereabouts, and you're not having competitive at-bats, you're not doing well. And for us as a Yankee site or a podcast to just ignore it and go, well, you know, he's got to get his timing down. And once he gets his timing down, he'll be okay. He's had weeks to get his timing down now, and he hasn't done it. Or he's going to be the MVP, so you can't pick on him. Okay, he's going to be the MVP. That's great. That doesn't mean he's performing in the World Series. That doesn't mean his performance hasn't hurt the Yankees, and it has. And I hope that all changes Monday night and continues for the next week, and we can put that story to rest. But if we can't, it is a big story. And because of his postseason failures many times now, it's a story that's only going to grow. And I'm sorry, Aaron Judge, but when you sign a contract for $40 million, this is part of what goes along with that. Part of what goes along with getting $40 million a year is you're going to be facing criticism and critique, and people are going to look closer at you because you signed the contract that says, I am the guy. It's me. I'm the superstar. You can't have it both ways. Part of that $40 million is putting up with the critique and the criticism and accepting all that. And to Judge's credit, he has. It's really the fans who are saying it's not fair. It is fair. It's absolutely fair. We're judged by our performance. When I was a principal, I went into classrooms and I watched how my school performed, and I judged the teachers on their performance. Some got rehired, some were let go. Why? Because of their performance. This is what we do. This is how it works in every way of life. You're judged by your performance, and Judge's performance has been abysmal. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Yes, I love Aaron Judge as a baseball player. He's a great baseball player. He's been terrible in the postseason. Awful. And let's hope that changes. The Yankees as a team, in part because of Aaron Judge, but not because of Aaron Judge exclusively, have not throughout the entire playoffs hit well with runners in scoring position, game after game after game. And I know the excuse is, well, they're still averaging 5 runs a game. That's great. But that goes back to my other point about having to overtax pitchers in big spots and make big outs and overexpose a guy like Luke Weaver, Mr. Smoke and Mirrors, in my opinion, and use him in games when if they had done better in the clutch and made the games higher scoring on their end, they wouldn't have had to use their high leverage relievers, and they would have been fresher and less exposed before other big games. The lack of Yankee performance with runners in scoring position has been a big problem. You have to drive in the runs when they're there. Austin Wells has been abysmal. I don't know why he forgot how to hit. I don't know why he can't hit. I don't know why he's chasing pitches that are over his head, but he is. I don't know why he just doesn't bunt at this point. I mean, he's slow. I get it. But, oh my goodness, the guy cannot hit. He's also had 0 competitive at-bats. Game after game, whiff after whiff. It's terrible. And the problem there is the Yankees don't have a backup catcher. Jose Trevino, you can't put him in the game because he can't throw. Every single with a halfway speedy guy will be a double, and any double with a halfway speedy guy could probably be a triple. So you have to keep going with Wells, but his bat since the beginning of September has been non-existent. And that's also created a huge hole in the lineup. That's been a problem. Aaron Boone backing up Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge, and then Jazz Chisholm and Anthony Rizzo, and then Austin Wells and Anthony Verdugo, Alex Verdugo, has not been smart. That's just bad lineup development. I don't understand why he's done that. So this is a big concern. Not noted, except here on Start Spreading the News, the Yankee defense hasn't been great. Now, Juan Soto is not a great outfielder. I think he's competent. I think it's an adventure every time he goes for the ball. I think with most players, you'd say, I don't want that guy anywhere near the outfield. I don't even necessarily want that kind of outfielder on my team. I think all of that is probably true. Or is absolutely true. But he's such a singular athlete as far as hitting. He's such an exceptional hitter in every way. He commands his at-bats in a way Aaron Judge doesn't. But we're not going to talk anymore about Aaron Judge. But you have to put up with the defense in right field. You just have to put up with it. And it hasn't been great. But on that one play on Friday night, he gets the ball. He throws it. It's not a great throw, but he throws it to second base. And Gleyber Torres, prone to lapses in attention, which is one reason I do not want him back on the Yankees in 2025, tries to sort of short arm the ball or whatever, doesn't get in front of it, and the ball bounces away. Bad throw by Soto. Lackadaisical effort by Torres. But the guy who really blew that play, which then allowed Ohtani to go to third, where he scored the tying run on a sacrifice fly, the guy who really blew that play wasn't the guy in right field who has questionable defense. It wasn't the guy at second base who has questionable defense. It was the guy at first base who's supposed to know better, who's supposed to be the guy who is Mr. Defense. And one of my criticisms of the way baseball is covered, and all major sports, is rather than telling the story about what's happening on the TV, the announcers tell the story about what they wish would happen. They almost, and maybe they actually do, but it seems like they almost, and maybe they actually do, but it seems like they almost decide in a production meeting before the game who they're going to focus on and what they're going to focus on and who they're going to ignore and what they're going to ignore and what their narratives are for each player. So the narrative for Anthony Rizzo is 2 broken fingers, former world champion, motivates his team, great defensive player, doing whatever it takes, coming back from injury. And when things don't fall into those definitions, they just sort of ignore them. Because anybody who truly knows the game of baseball knows that that play would not have resulted in Ohtani going to third if Anthony Rizzo, the great defensive specialist, the guy who we're not supposed to be thinking about defensively, played his position the right way. And it wasn't reported at all. Nobody even mentioned it. But the ball got past Gleyber Torres and went behind him toward the pitcher's mound. And Ohtani looked and said, no one's going to pick that ball up. And that's why he went to third. And that's how he was able to tie the game. A game the Yankees lost because Ohtani was able to score the tying run earlier. Who should have been behind the mound? If somebody was there, Ohtani wouldn't have gone to third. Well, maybe you say it should have been the shortstop, but no, the shortstop's supposed to then cover the bag. If your cutoff man is Gleyber, and maybe Gleyber shouldn't have been right on outfield grass and dirt right there. Maybe he should have been deeper into the outfield to get that throw. So it didn't short hop him, but your shortstop covers the bag on that play. So it can't be Volpe who should have been there once it got away. Your third baseman's covering third in case a play goes there, so it couldn't have been your third baseman. Your left fielder and your center fielder, they don't come running to the infield to clog up the area around there. The pitcher's not supposed to be on the mound at that point. I pitch enough to know that when a ball is hit in the gap, your job is to cover behind third base. I do that often when I'm not pitching well. The pitcher does not stay on the pitcher's mound. Somebody's got to back up third base. That's his job. You're not going to take your catcher. Your catcher's not going to run behind the pitcher's mound because what if a guy starts to come home? You need the catcher there. So there's one guy who should be there. One guy. Your first baseman. Once Ohtani takes off past first base and is committed to second, and there's no chance he's going back to first, Anthony Rizzo's job on that play is nothing. He has no other role. He's not going after the ball in the outfield. He's not covering second base. He's not covering third base. He's not covering home. So where does the first baseman go on that play? Behind the pitcher's mound. And where was Anthony Rizzo? And that's a story no one's telling. But that comes down again to preparation. That comes down again to the manager holding players accountable. I think back all the way decades ago to the flip play with Derek Jeter. The ball went over the cutoff man's head, went over the first baseman. It's coming down the line. Jeter happens to be on the line. And he gets the ball and flips it to the catcher, and they get Jeremy Giambi barely trying to score, helping the Yankees win a must-win game where they go on to the World Series. And I remember people asking Jeter about it and Joe Torre about it. Like, why were you there? That makes no sense. It really does, because at that point, the shortstop doesn't have a job. Somebody else is covering second, somebody else is covering third, so why don't you go over and back up the backup? But they talked about how, yeah, we've worked on that play in spring training. We've gone through that a million times. That's preparation. That's the little things that make a difference between winning and losing. You know, there's a great book called Good to Great. And in the beginning of the book, the main point is that good is the enemy of great. And I've said this for years. I think the Yankees are happy to be good. And they hope that when they're good, sometimes luck helps them become great, or at least seem great, by reaching or winning the World Series. But the Yankees don't seem to strive to be great. I think Joe Torre's teams strived to be great. And so they worked on the little things that separate the good from the great. So on that play, Jeter goes where he's supposed to go, and he gets the ball, flips, and a miraculous play happens. But with the 2024 Yankees, that kind of thing does not happen. Because I don't think there's this idea that we need to be great. And I don't think the manager prepares them. I don't think he's ever prepared them well. We've seen too many bad base running decisions, too many bad base running errors, too many lackadaisical times they don't hustle on the base paths, too many times they're lackadaisical on defense, too many times they're lackadaisical in their pitch selection and the way they go after hitters. And too many times the guy who's supposed to be somewhere on a field defensively isn't where he's supposed to be. And it seems like it's just accepted. And the Yankees lost on Friday night, game one, partially because Anthony Rizzo, the great defensive player, wasn't where he should be. Because either he wasn't thinking about it, or he forgot, or he was being lazy, or it's something that the Yankees just never worry about. How many times have you seen an outfielder ball missed by the cutoff man who's probably not out deep enough, and the guy on second goes to third, and that run that he scores becomes a big play in the game? How often does that happen? Do we really need to go over that drill? You guys know, right? Like Rizzo on that play, he would go over, drift over if the ball's there. I mean, what is going to happen? Once every 5 years? Don't worry about it. I mean, is that how they go through it in spring training? I've gotten that sense. How they go through anything. I don't think they focus on baseball fundamentals. And then you hear reports of players and scouts and coaches who say, no, the Yankees don't do any of that stuff. I think that's an organizational failure. I think it's a failure of the manager. And I think it's a big failure on Anthony Rizzo. And it wasn't covered because that's not part of the narrative that they have. Let's see about Anthony Rizzo. Great defensive player. Well, we just saw a bad defensive play. Do we mention it? No, don't say that on the TV. That's not part of our storyline. Unfortunately, that seems to be the way these games are. Watch the Super Bowl. They'll start talking about a player before the game. Fred Jones. Oh, there's Fred Jones. I remember the one year with Jose Altuve in the playoffs against the Yankees. Like from the moment it started until the last out, it was Jose Altuve this, Jose Altuve that. No matter what happened, I don't know, Aaron Judge could hit a home run. Be like, well, Jose Altuve shared his lunch with the secretary the other day. It was a tuna salad sandwich. And let me tell you, it was one of the best tuna salad sandwiches ever. Jose Altuve made it himself, and he got the best ingredients in order to make that sandwich. Well, the Yankees have just taken the lead here in the ball game, but Jose Altuve, he uses a very special glove. I mean, I remember that. Like, no matter what happened, it was always about Jose Altuve, and I've seen that again in the playoffs, the World Series. They mention a guy, Fred Jones. There he is, warming up. And then they'll cut to Fred Jones on the sideline. There he is, standing there. They'll cut to him during the national anthem. There he is, looking at the sky. Boy, does he look at the sky great. And then during the game, they'll mention him whenever there was a great touchdown to Hank. But Fred Jones, look, watch the route that he ran. He could have almost been opened. I mean, that's the way it's just, and it seems like the Anthony Rizzo story isn't the one that's going to include the fact that he played poorly on defense because of the team or his or whomever's lack of preparation. That doesn't fit the narrative, so they don't mention it. But it doesn't go unnoticed. And I'm sure the Dodgers noted it. I don't know if the Yankees did, because I don't know if the Yankees are prepared enough to note stuff like that. All right, my friends. Woo! 51 minutes. I think we're going to end a little early today. I remind you all to please, please, please find it in your hearts. Click on the banner on Start Spreading the News. Give something to the Sesame Workshop. I get none of it. None of this benefits me in any way, except that I know I'm trying to do something great to help kids and others around the world and in this wonderful country. Sesame Place, Sesame Workshop. Find a couple of dollars. Make a donation. You know, we give you this show for free all the time. Start Spreading the News just celebrated its 7th anniversary of giving free content to people for 7 years, daily, multiple articles every single day. Every other site almost goes behind paywalls, and people are paying lots of money and donating to this guy and that guy so you can get their free newsletter and all this kind of nonsense. And yet we do it for free. So say, you know what? Instead of the fact that I've never had to pay for that great product, Start Spreading the News, let me make a donation to Sesame. Why not? It'd be a nice thing if you did it. And we'd all appreciate it. And you can give anonymously too. So please do. All right, the next time I see you will be Saturday morning for the Dr. Sem show. That comes on 7 a.m. And then the next time this show comes on, I will have hopefully completed the New York City Marathon. Oh, boy, 26.2 miles. It's a big deal. But I think I'm ready. I'm looking forward to it. God bless you all. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Let's go Yankees.